actual podcast.
And you say that as we go live.
Well, yeah, but I mean, we can
Going
edit this
forward.
part out.
Yeah.
See, this is the beauty of it.
Okay, yes. Okay, so uh, to everyone, don't worry what we're about to do, but stream starting in three, two, one. Wait, let's actually just wait. See, some people are still trying to connect.
I feel like Twitch has been, or Discord's been weird lately about me.
Oh, there's a double post now.
Last of the Vates. Reha,
Hmm?
did that ping you in the Discord?
Yeah,
Okay.
it did.
Sometimes I feel like it sends me the message that's like, "Are you sure? There's like 13 billion people you're about to ping," and I'm like, "Yeah, ping them all. It's my
Oh
Discord."
yes, I get that.
And then,
Yeah.
hey, Red the Dread.
Woo! Thank you, Possum, for following us. I just got a follow just randomly out of nowhere. Yay! Okay, so let's start. But I'm gonna put a break in between, so you know what for the reason we just discussed. Welcome everyone. My name is JJ Tao, and we are here with KP and Rhea on the Creature Feature stream slash podcast slash AMA.
Hello, hello, hello.
All of the above.
Hello and welcome.
Yeah, so our producer Ray is in the background with the questions, holding on to things, getting ready to ask. But as always, you can ask questions within the chat live. And today we're going to be talking about Wolphins, and most likely we're going to end up talking about other hybrids as well. So let's just get straight off to us. I'll ask the first question. KP, what is a Wolphin?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a Wolphin is a hybrid, as you might have guessed. It is a female bottlenose dolphin that has bred with a male false killer whale. And even though Wolphin sort of implies that it is you know, a whale and a dolphin, and obviously false killer whale is in the name. If you've been in some of our other chats, you probably will have known that a false killer whale is actually just a type of dolphin. So it is like an oceanic species of dolphin. Sometimes you can actually even see them off the coast of Hawaii, and I've actually personally worked with one, which is super cool, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, but anyway, yes. So essentially, what has happened is those animals have bred. It kind of think the same thing as like horses and um, what is it? A horse and a donkey, and that makes a mule, I believe. And it has to be done a specific way. In order for that animal to then be able to breed, which is the kind of the really cool thing I think about Wolphins. It hasn't happened very often, guys. It's only happened like a couple times in the history that we know of in facilities. And basically, what has happened is the individual animal that survived. So there's one that passed away, and then there was another one that did survive, and that was also at a facility in Hawaii. That animal actually then bred again with another dolphin. So that's kind of the cool thing is hybrid animals sometimes happen, but usually they are sterile or unable to reproduce. But these animals are actually viable, which is sort of interesting. So that's sort of the short of what a Wolphin is.
And it's just amazing. So that basically sort of proving that they're most definitely the same species. But how does this change the science of the animal? Because isn't that technically supposed to be impossible? But I mean, I know we have other animals that mate together, but I mean, this was literally not like what they do where they scientifically split the eggs. This happened in captivity, naturally.
Did. So yeah, so Opal Up was asking the same thing here. Like, this isn't a result of human intervention. It was not a planned situation, but they were housing the two animals together, sort of assuming, like I probably would have, that nothing was going to happen. And and then it did. So that's so it's not necessarily like human intervention, but it was in a controlled situation. So I don't know. I can't say for certain that it's never happened out in the wild. I don't think anyone can say that for certain. But it has not been, I don't think, observed in the wild before.
Would they immediately know the difference though? Like, are there distinguishing features that what that is a wolfen, that is not?
Yeah,
like for the average person.
To the layman, not really. So like you can look at pictures of Wolphins, and they kind of just look like bottlenose dolphins, like kind of just maybe a little bit weirder bottlenose dolphins. So no, it's not like immediately apparent to anybody that just would happen to be like driving by in a boat, especially because you don't really catch a good glimpse of these animals at that time. Like that it's not immediately apparent, and that it could be a hybrid animal. And yeah, I did just turn JJ's volume up, so let me know if that's better, you guys.
Oh yes, I remember that was a thing last time.
Yeah, got it. I got it. So it's one of those things. It could have happened out in the ocean. It is now, we know it's physically possible. But the only observed cases were under human care. Yeah.
Okay. Well, fascinating. Right, that is as much questions I have for now. Raya, the floor is open to you for the questions that have been submitted.
Yep. So our questions. This one is: do Wolphins basically just share the same characteristics as normal dolphins?
Yeah. So, you can see this is just an example of one that it looks very much to me like a bottlenose dolphin, except for what we do see is a slightly more bulbous, what we call a melon. So all whales and dolphins and porpoises have what's called a melon, which is an adorable name. But it essentially just means this bulbous protrusion on the front of their heads that is used primarily for echolocation and vocalizations. So that on a bottlenose dolphin tends to be rather sort of not super pronounced. They do have it; it is there, but it's just not quite as pronounced as some of the other animals. So when you look at these guys, they're pretty sleek. They're pretty streamlined. But when you look at an animal like a false killer whale, you can see a much more rounded, bulbous head on the end of them. And so when you're basically getting what you sort of would have probably drawn up when you get a Wolphin. And there would be probably like I said, this is a very small sample size of animals. Like literally, it's only happened like 2 times or something that we know of, and so we don't know that this would be the case every single time, but because genetics are weird like that when you mix and match. But you can see a much shorter rostrum. Now we're just getting into like the anatomy of a dolphin, but the rostrum is like that, like kind of the beak of a dolphin small, essentially. And in bottlenose, they tend to have the really elongated rostrum, which is why they get their name bottlenose. It looks like a bottleneck essentially. But when you look at the Wolphin, it's a much shorter rostrum and a much bigger bulbous melon on their head. So you can kind of see the difference, and the coloration too. You're getting a little bit what you would expect, kind of a mix. You're getting a little bit of a darker animal than your typical bottlenose dolphin, and a little bit lighter than your typical false killer whale. So it's like almost like the quintessential hybrid.
But as you mentioned, for all those that have just joined, a false killer whale is a dolphin. So this is very much possible.
Yes, it's a very confusing name. It is like the 3rd or 4th largest species of dolphin, depending on who you ask,
yes.
Which scientists you ask. And the biggest dolphin in the world being the killer whale. So, there's a lot of bad naming going on out there, but essentially they're what's called a toothed whale, which is again actually just kind of a type of dolphin.
Which we've
Sorry.
we've gone into that subject before about.
There's a lot
whales
going
and
on, yeah.
They have not made the decisions. I mean, this was a surprise. Very quick question that we got asked if you know. The aquarium-born Wolphin, was it a male or a female?
Good question. Let's
Off to
take a
Google.
look. Yeah, I had a family tree up here. It was a
wow.
female.
Oh wow,
It was a female. Yeah, and she on two separate occasions, or actually it looks like three separate occasions, had three different calves. So obviously a totally, viable animal that was able to reproduce itself, which is really kind of crazy.
So does this generate a whole new species, or is it a subspecies? And does this actually strengthen the genetics? Obviously, because the dolphin could end up having calves with other dolphins, but now it's got this freaky genetics.
Got weird genetics.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, like, yeah. So again, we're talking about like why they could reproduce, and is it because because they're both dolphins? Potentially, they're closer related than we obviously sort of thought. However, I wouldn't probably expect that like an animal like an orca could probably breed with a, I mean, some of that's anatomy, but some of it's, it's so it's just one of those like freak of nature things. And I don't know that it necessarily means it's a new species. I think there's probably some rules about having to have a certain number of individuals before you can actually classify it as a species. I don't imagine one individual makes it a species. It can be kind of a troublesome sort of thing though, and actually in zoos and aquariums right now we're dealing with this on the scale of African penguins. JJ, let's bring it back.
Yes.
Bring it back to JJ.
Yes.
With African penguins, because the African penguins in zoos and aquariums are sometimes housed with other species. Which can be really great from like a welfare point of view, but they're actually finding that they are breeding with animals like the Magellanic penguin. And so there is some concern that in zoos and aquariums, there's a number of individuals that you may not even know that are actually crossbreeds between African and Magellanic penguins. And this maybe doesn't sound like it's a super big deal, but the reason for having animals like African penguins under human care is so that we could potentially re-release them off the coast of South Africa. But you're not going to do that with hybrid animals that would be totally screwing up the genetic population. So they've actually gone in and started doing like blood tests on animals and really cracking down on the breeding and what we're doing with those guys, because they can breed with other animals. So I don't know if that necessarily makes it like a new species. I don't know that it, the question of whether or not it strengthens their genetics is interesting one. I don't really know if it's significant.
Like diversifying genetics, but as you said, you just mentioned, could it not actually be like for the penguins, something you don't want to introduce into the wild?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, because you're essentially, if you do that, if you have Magellanic penguins heading out into, or any percentage of Magellanic penguins heading out into South Africa, that's essentially going to extinct the population of as we know it, of African penguins, because it's not an African penguin if it's bred with a Magellanic penguin, right?
Yeah,
so
something else.
Yeah, so those are sort of like the interesting issues that arise with this kind of stuff, and obviously nobody planned for that to happen. Nobody wanted that to happen, but it did, and sometimes you can't even really predict these types of things. But it is something that is of growing concern. So yeah, I mean, it was something when we housed a false killer whale at our facility. He was housed with a Pacific white-sided dolphin, and there was some concern. We were always watching them to make sure that they weren't up to some antics, because there was a possibility, we thought in our head, even though it never happened before, but knowing what we know now about false killer whales and bottlenose dolphins, it's a possibility that they could have interbred.
But
so,
if I'm standing correct, I'm sorry to get to that subject, but don't dolphins and false killer whales mate rather quickly? It's like tap tap and that was fun.
I mean, there was always the possibility that we would have never even seen it, for
like,
sure.
Go down to tie your shoelaces and they come up smoking, and you're like, what have you guys done?
They come up smoking. I mean, so that's true. But we also had he was a very young animal, so there was not really too much concern for us, at least, that he was even capable of that. And our Pacific white-sided dolphin had never successfully bred, even with other Pacific white-sided dolphins, so it was pretty low concern, but it was still something we were watching out for. But you can even, like, obviously they can mate very quickly, but we would have probably noticed if they were, like, cozying up to each other, in the coming, like, just getting really comfortable with each other, and then that would be like, well, you guys are a little too comfortable together, and then we have to play like the dad card and sit on the sofa while they're watching a movie and not let them be alone, sort of situation.
No Netflix and chill for the dolphins and the killer whales.
Yeah.
Doors unlocked, people. That's very weird. I'm sorry. The next thing actually is obviously you've mentioned that this was something that was unpredicted. How does this change the entire marine biology and the science of this? Of like, oh, we thought this was impossible. Now we know it's possible. How does that spill to the rest of marine biology in terms of this sort of interactions, if I can say that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good lesson in humility. You never really know, and it's like, at the risk of like sounding like, Jeff Goldblum, like, life finds a way. Life will find a way. So it is definitely something that I mean, like I said, like you have this happen and at this facility in Hawaii, and then it has far-reaching consequences that we're thinking about in Vancouver when we have a false killer whale. So I mean, it just sort of opens, I think, everybody's eyes, and it also is an important reminder of how very little we know and understand about, especially environments like our ocean.
Yes. Sure. It's still very young to us. Thank you for using that reference. That is one of my favorite lines in a pseudoscience movie. Life finds a way. Okay. Raya, off to you. Sorry for stealing all the questions.
No, we still have some more, but the next one is mostly so this is considered a one-off of like freak of nature, but is it possible that it could become just normal evolution?
Yeah. I mean, like we said, we don't even know if this is happening out in the ocean, and it could be. Pardon me. So if it is, because like under human care, we're not really going to be trying to do this. Like it is in general rule, like under human care, we are not doing genetic like experiments, and that's not really what we're about. So so it's not likely that it is going to happen a lot under human care, except for by accidents, which is what we were seeing. But it is possible that is just the way that life is going, and maybe maybe down the road, scientists are working on ways to make it easier to collect DNA from animals. It used to kind of be a pretty invasive process to collect DNA from wild animals, and I think they're working on a lot of different ways that we can make that less of a a sort of process for these guys. Oh my goodness, what is this music? I was just trying to turn on a different webcam and got some fun little music. But yeah, so So it's absolutely possible. It's possible it's happening right now, and that we just haven't noticed it.
Good God.
And that's just the way that evolution goes, right? I mean, it's even when you think about killer whales. Oh, Double, they want you to know that you're signed in as me. They've got like killer whales are actually being slowly classified as several different species because they're so different from one another. I mean, I think we've talked about it a little bit before, but like they're really branching out and they don't really interbreed with each other. So you like get to see like how many different types of killer whales there are. I mean, look at this one. And like the Arctic types are so different than some of these other different types of killer whales. And so scientists are actually at the point where they're considering classifying these all as different killer whale species.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's like sort of almost the opposite of what we're talking about. You know, we're talking about maybe bottlenose dolphins and false killer whales coming together
Yes.
in a new species. And this is a species completely branching out and becoming something entirely different. Which is so cool. But yeah, I mean, evolution is happening like under our noses all the time. And
we don't even...
yeah, you don't even think about it or know necessarily.
And it happens like it happened within our generation as well, which is so fascinating. But this is Pluto all over again. 1 minute we've learned something, and I get 100% in my flippin' naming the planets, and then the next year it changes. This is happening with whales now.
Yeah, and somebody's asking me here to explain false killer whale. So
yes, please.
We've talked about it a little bit, but you know, it never hurts to go into this. So a false killer whale is a type of dolphin. I'm sorry. So there are like, let's just see, types of dolphins. I think there's like over 40 different species of dolphin, and some of that is always changing. And some of them look very much like what we would normally think of, which are, you know, your bottlenose dolphins. But there are lots of different kinds of dolphins, and a killer whale or an orca is actually the largest species of dolphin. So that's their scientific classification, is a dolphin. However, scientists didn't really know this at the time, and when they first discovered false killer whales, they were actually finding their like just their bones washed up on shore or whatever, and so they were getting a lot of their skulls. And if you look at a false killer whale, one of the very first things that you notice is their teeth and their skull are very similar to that of a killer whale. So,
yes,
I mean, they look almost identical, except for false killer whales are a little bit smaller. But yeah, so very similar skulls. So scientists actually thought that that's what they were looking at when they were looking at the skeleton.
Is that how they got the name? Yeah.
Exactly. So years down the road, they figure out, oh, it's not a killer whale. It's a false killer whale. You know, they were probably all like, it was probably, you know, some men who were butthurt about being wrong.
Like, just call it,
yeah, right, he tricked me. And so then they decided to call it a false killer whale. So that is why it has that name, but it is really just a large species of dolphin.
Because someone just refused to change it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But it is very confusing to the rest of us.
No, for sure. And you know, even when you I forget what is its scientific name? Oh, pseudorca. Its scientific name is literally
orca in it.
Pseudorca.
Pseudo-orca.
And pseudo. Yeah, it's a pseudorca crassidens. So
that's cheating.
So it's literally like, I'm not making it up. I'm not just calling it a false killer whale, and there's a better name for it. There really isn't. Pseudorca means the exact same thing in Latin. So it's unfortunately,
but
that's just what it is.
As you've mentioned, a killer whale itself is a type of dolphin, and then the false killer whale, which is a false killer whale, is also a dolphin. Both of them are false killer whales. So the false killer whale cancels each other out. So it's actually a true killer whale. And my brain is going to explode. It's like thinking of time travel. It's
Yeah, well,
amazing.
if I wanna mess you up even more,
Please.
technically, these all of dolphins are classified as toothed whales.
Stop.
So
Stop.
so when you go through like the um whale genetic tree sort of thing, or whale family tree, you have um essentially like you have baleen whales and toothed whales, and that's where they branch out. So baleen whales being like your humpback whales, those types of animals that have those big, sort of sieve like um, baleen that they use to sort of filter out their feed. And then you've got toothed whales, which is things like killer whales and false killer whales and bottlenose dolphins, and those guys are a species. It's kind of like all dolphins are whales, but not all whales are dolphins. If that makes sense. I'm sure none of this makes sense at this point in time.
No, it's like it's
and you know
just
what? The
everything's
scientists don't
mixed.
get it either. So
You know, the ironic thing is that the whole topic is mixed up. I'm surprised no one back then knew that possibly dolphins could make wolphins. The fact that it's already the lines are blurred between the species.
yeah,
My
yeah, no, for sure.
gosh. Okay. Let's simmer down and let's move on to the next question. Rhea, if you could hit us with a question that while I contemplate what KP just explained to us.
Okay. Okay, so our next question is about them living alongside of other dolphins. So do they just blend in with the pod, or are they rejected in any way?
That's gonna depend a lot more on like uh the individual animals, like as their personalities is what I mean, and not so much like there's not going to be like a hard rule of like a false killer whale will always be rejected by bottlenose dolphins. It's more like they are they're individuals, and some dolphins are rude and do not want to admit anybody into their inner circles, and some are super social and like love to make friends. It's kind of the same as humans in a lot of ways. There's introverts and extrovert dolphins, so it really depends. It's interesting to think about their communication skills, just based on when I worked with a false killer whale and this is not a bottlenose dolphin, but a Pacific white-sided dolphin in the same habitat. They sort of had to kind of learn to communicate together, because some of their vocalizations. False killer whales are known for making a insane range of vocalizations, far more than bottlenose dolphins, and so but it was interesting to watch, as you could kind of at times our Pacific white-sided dolphin would even mimic our false killer whale in the vocalizations.
Oh, wow.
And you get to see some of some of that going on, and a lot of the body language and things like that, and learning from each other in that way. But yeah, I mean, it's whenever you introduce any animal, it can be, it can go a number of different ways, and it's very hard to predict. And so, but in general, I think you can usually work through anything that is that you could come up against. Like, I don't think there's ever going to be like an animal that just like simply will not coexist with another animal or something like that. It's just all about making it work for them, in my opinion. But yeah, good question. I mean, it's going to be so case by case basis when you house, but lots of facilities house species together. I mean, Miami Seaquarium houses a killer whale with Pacific white-sided dolphins. That happened at the Vancouver Aquarium too. So you can house very large animals alongside. We used to house our beluga whales with our harbor porpoises. So you can do a lot of really cool stuff.
And they sort of interact with each other. Well, now we know sometimes more than others. Good gracious. But that's interesting. Okay, so just really quickly for everyone, You might not understand what I'm about to do next, but it's for a reason. We're testing something else, and you'll be very happy what we're going to be doing in the future. But for formal purposes, this is the end of part 1. Don't worry, the stream isn't ending, but it's the end of the part 1 of this part of the AMA, and now we're going to be moving over to part 2, which is still going to be covering Wolphins. So welcome back to part 2. Everyone's going to be like, what are they doing? It's like, are they pausing? You'll understand. We'll obviously make things a lot more clear to everyone going forward of what we're going to be actually doing. It's very exciting. We're very excited. But this is going to be part 2.
All will be revealed in the future.
Oh, will be revealed. And like me, I like to create the mystery and ooh, what's going to happen. So this is part 2. Welcome back.
We won't take quite as long to reveal it as you're taking to reveal Alto's face.
Me is a lot more different, but we won't take that long. It's going to happen real soon. But we're very excited about it. So this is now part 2 of the discussion of Wolphins on the creature feature with KP, Raya, and myself. And yes, so I'm going to hit right off with the part 2. Someone actually asked the question here, which sort of relates to what we're talking about, is has it been studied how far from each other genetically killer whales are to blue-nosed dolphins? Or is it basically just a classification? Like, that looks different a little bit. It's a different species.
Interesting question. I don't know. Like I said, they do take DNA samples from these animals, but I'm not exactly sure. I'd have to do some research to see if there's been actual studies on, like they have with humans, where like we share however much percentage of our DNA with all of these types of animals. Like people have sequenced the human genome. I'm not exactly sure if they've done that with animals like killer whales and bottlenose dolphins, and I'm not exactly sure if they've compared those two animals either to see exactly how closely related they are. But I don't think even with that, like, I don't think you can even predict whether or maybe scientists can, I don't know. But I might just be making this up, but I'm not even sure that you can even predict if they could interbreed. Like,
yes.
And I imagine you have to be like extremely closely related to actually
to actually be able
interbreed.
To do that,
yeah. So yeah, it's that's an interesting question, and I don't know. I'm the first to tell you when I don't know something, and I'd have to actually do some research on that. So I'm not sure if they've figured out exactly how closely they are related to each other.
There was a follow-up question. Is any sort of like in terms of DNA and genetics ever studied when they're in captivity? Is that something that is considered?
Yeah, absolutely. So like part of what you can do is develop better means of doing things. So previously, what they would do to get samples or like say put cameras on wild animals is they would literally pretty much have to like drive a boat. You're like harassing these animals basically. And this is all in the name of science. So, if we hadn't done these types of things, we wouldn't know anything about them, but it's but we have developed better methods for doing this. So you basically have to chase them down in a boat and then jab them with a stick where you can get like a big plug of fat essentially and DNA test that. And the animals are going to be fine. Like it's not like an enormously big deal, but it's still, it is stressful for the animals, obviously. Or if they wanted to attach a camera per se, they would have to they would put almost like a dorsal fin piercing through them, and it essentially would be like a permanent affixation to that animal. But a lot of things that you can develop under human care, like with our Pacific white-sided dolphins, for instance, we actually helped scientists develop a better way to put cameras on an animal called a dusky dolphin. Dusky dolphins live off the coast of like New Zealand and Australia, and they're very, very similar to Pacific white-sided dolphins. So they're very fast, very sleek, and that causes problems. And they do a lot of acrobatics, so that causes problems for what they wanted to do, which was suction cup cameras that would eventually fall off. or trackers, really. I don't know if I think they put cameras on some of them, but they were like essentially like GPS trackers. And so by having a dolphin that we could literally sit next to and put the tracker on and then ask to do things like breaches, leaps, porpoising behaviors that our animal knows, we were able to help them develop a suction cup tag that would stay on during those types of behaviors for, I forget, I think it was like 24 to 48 hours, and then it did eventually fall off after that. But that helped them to research the dusky dolphins, which are a critically endangered species, in a way that was just would never have been possible because they well, I guess it would have been possible if they wanted to do the super invasive route, but they wanted to, you know, make sure that they're not harassing an endangered species. And so those are the types of things that you can do under human care. So yeah, we do all voluntary blood samples with our animals, so you can look at DNA and stuff like that. And then, you know, you can compare that with wild animals as well. And I think this manatee is passing gas right now. That was pretty hilarious. Anyway,
Still gotta do it.
yeah. So yeah, there's just like, I can't even tell you the level of things that you could do under human care that make a difference out in the actual ocean. It's astounding, and I've seen it all firsthand, and it's one of the reasons that I am so very supportive of zoos and aquariums that are doing this kind of thing, because I think it's really, really important. I think it makes a difference.
And as you mentioned, like the more research you can do in captivity, the less stress you're putting on some wild animal. And I know we've had this discussion before, but definitely I always want to reiterate the point is that, especially with your kind of facilities like Vernacular and that, it's not just a show at the aquarium, it's education. And we have real scientists in there, not Susan that got hired just to speak in front of the camera and go, oh my gosh, this is a dolphin. There's actual scientists in there doing research with these animals, and it's all for the better of us. We learned about Wolphins. Now everyone knows that certain breeds can have associations with each other. So wow.
Yeah, it's interesting. And you know, I mean, it's not like we said, there's mules. That's another you know, really common example, and one that humans are actively
doing it,
trying to propagate. And then there's also like we've talked a little bit about this in the past too, but white tigers. You guys know that white tigers do not exist.
Is that
in
the ligers?
The wild, right?
Was that the same thing?
No, ligers are different. Ligers is another example.
Are we going
absolutely?
But white tigers are actually hybrid?
Well, they're inbred to a point of like almost making a new animal, essentially. 13... or an animal that's like very, I don't want to say like genetically damaged, but it pretty much is. It's like it has a lot of other issues. But like yeah, ligers is a great example, and humans are actively doing that in some cases.
Thing. This was an accident with the dolphins, but white tigers. You just ruined 13-year-old Power Ranger fan me. Because I would like the white tiger. I'm like, oh gosh, they're not actually a proper species. Well, you know, it's basically man-made type of thing. Yeah, liger, everyone knows about liger, but as you said, it's like the separation is that this was something a human did versus the wolf.
Yeah, and so you get into a lot of ethics with stuff like this. Like, people have done this and it's not necessarily like what's the ethical sort of issues, you know, behind this. Like, we're just, why are we doing this? Like,
what is the purpose of it?
Yeah, and I think for the most part the purpose is like, what happens with ligers for whatever reason is that when you breed them, that it like almost cancels out the gene that inhibits like size. Like, animals can't just grow and grow and grow and grow and grow and be like absolutely enormous. You know, like tigers have a range of size that they tend to be, and they're not gonna like just keep growing and outgrow that size range. And then lions have a size range where they tend to be. And for whatever reason, when you breed these two together in a specific way, it just like forget about that. And so it makes this huge animal. So ligers are massive. So I hate that, like, I feel like I do a lot of like man hating on my streams, but I really don't hate men. But like I feel like this is a man thing. Like you only ever see men posing next to these giant tigers.
It's
as I said that,
mankind.
there's a female over there. But yeah, I mean, like, it's like, I guess it's like kind of a macho kind of thing. Like, oh, I've got this giant
animal
creature, and that's super cool, and and I control it, so I'm super cool because of it. Kind of a thing is the vibe that I get. But you can see how massive this animal is. Like, this isn't Photoshop, guys. This thing is like, it is this big. And so that's like that's not normal.
But as you said,
so
that you can see is for show. That is just basically like, I have power over this massive creature that could technically put me on the back of a milk carton with one swap. Like, just gone, vanished, disappeared.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Allegra is saying here, like what are we doing with some dog breeds too? You end up with
oh yes, yeah.
Like we love some of our dogs, and I love, like, I had pugs growing up, but that's like it's a very weird thing to do. And those brachiocephalic dogs, like, they have a lot of health issues because of that. Or like German shepherds who have serious hip issues, like corgis. Like, what are we doing? Like, these animals are adorable, absolutely, but like, it's it's at the cost sometimes of the animal's health. I mean, like, there's a reason that usually if you adopt a mutt, you're gonna have a dog that is healthier in general,
a better breed,
than if you have like a purebred something or other, and so yeah, I mean, there's ethical questions involved in this too. And I don't think that was what was going on with the Wolphins situation. So just so we're clear, the facility did not plan on that happening.
Was an accident.
And they were just as surprised as we were. And then I think that they were surprised again when that animal had viable offspring, because that's also a thing that's not really supposed to happen. A lot of times when you interbreed, like, I don't think that ligers, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that ligers can actually have viable offspring. I think you have a liger, that's it, that's the one. You have to, in order to have more ligers, you have to breed more tigers and lions. You can't breed two ligers together. So which is sort of the difference between, because there's one way, so you've got mules, which is breeding horses and donkeys, and can mules reproduce?
I think so. I know this only from being in South Africa. It's like,
okay,
I'm
gonna Google it. I'm gonna use the Google.
That's what I'm saying. I think so, but I've been in places where they had a mule farm, and I'm like, what are all these little like power donkeys?
No, they can't.
They can't. How do they have a mule farm?
Because I think they're just making more.
Oh,
they're just making more mules.
Basically,
so it's interesting, and that's a weird thing too, because those are like completely domesticated animals.
Yes,
so
there's so many mules.
and the mules are used for a lot of things. So I don't know, but it looks like a mule is an offspring between a male donkey and a female horse.
Yes.
And because of the odd number of chromosomes, they can't reproduce.
Yeah, we have a lot of mules. Like, if we're driving from here to up our country, if we don't pass a cart with a mule-drawn cart, you haven't traveled the country properly. You see them all over. So, wow. My mind has just been blown. I'm yesterday years old when I learned about that.
Yeah. So some of these things are yeah, it's interesting to think, like, I hadn't really thought of that until until like somebody mentioned it, that what's going on with the dog breeds, and I'm like, yeah, those are like weird ethical questions that maybe we should be like asking ourselves. I don't know. It's definitely an interesting thing.
I would have actually just loved to see the face of the people when they realized that dolphin was pregnant. Like, we thought it was something else. How did
Yeah,
this happen?
yeah, for sure. And like I don't even know. I don't know the story behind it. Like were they even a lot of times when you have a pregnant animal, you're prepared for it or you're prepared that the possibility might
Yes.
be happening. So you're taking blood tests, you're
Like
doing
having to make
ultrasounds and
sure.
stuff like that. Yeah. And so I don't know if they like if it was it so unexpected that just one day they were like, "Huh. There's 4 dolphins in here now."
No, it's like, they'll probably be like,
What's that about?
the
Like,
room got very quiet when I'm like, listen, guys, I'm not sure, but with everything I've studied, it seems that the dolphin's pregnant. It shouldn't be possible, but it is. I don't know if I need a new career. I didn't drink last
Yeah, I
night.
know.
Something's happened. It's
Yeah, and what
interesting.
are we okay, so now we're talking about like so what makes it a species? Because people are saying here it's not technically like a mule and a liger are not technically a species because they don't meet the criteria. So is an organism the same species? So they have to be able to breed in order to be considered a species. So maybe, like you said, what we were talking about earlier with the Wolphin, that must be considered a species then, because
Really though?
those animals can breed.
Yeah, they can
the
breed.
Wolphins.
I'd like to use this as an example.
Life finds a way. Yes.
And I
Yeah,
definitely
we talked
don't.
about that.
I don't want to sort of bring up it's such a subject. You say when we like genetically close to things. So as humans, we're very genetically close to apes, but we can't breed with them. But would a dolphin and a false killer whale, because they're both dolphins, be similar to like if different races have interacted with each other?
Yeah. No, I don't really know that
I'm trying
race is even like really a thing. Like
Yeah.
it's just kind of like
I'm trying to find the closest nearest
I don't think
example.
it's scientifically. I don't even think it's a thing. But also, I don't know, and maybe they have tested this, like in some way. I don't know how they would do it, but like, do we know that humans can't breed with animals like bonobos or chimpanzees? Do we know that?
That's actually
Or do we
true.
just think that because nobody's doing it? Because thank goodness. But
Or
I
that
mean,
we
there's
just
obvious.
don't know about it.
Well, yeah, there's obvious ethical concerns when you think about like if they were gonna do experimentation like that. No,
Yes,
nobody wants
yes.
to test that, but that's what I'm like curious about, like,
But you raise a valuable
and
question.
these are things I don't know.
Because we, at the end of the day, we're mammals. We're mammals, so we followed basically the same rules in some fashion. So it's very interesting topic to broach. But yeah, unethical to really. Or there'd be no purpose to it. I don't think anyone would want to figure that out. Like we don't want.
No, but that's interesting. It's
Yeah.
interesting that we look at that as different. Like nobody
Yes.
wants to find that out, but we definitely want to find out if horses can breed with donkeys, and if so, let's just do that a lot. I mean, like, where's the line?
Yes.
And that's the interesting thing that that I find when we talk about these ethical questions is like how do you decide where the line is? I mean, obviously I don't want to find out if humans can interbreed with apes either, but why is that different than some of these other things,
And where, but also it's also trying to. But also, you just mentioned earlier, it's basically like a mankind type of thing. A human, we're the above species, and we want to show.
Right. But we're not. We're not. You know that, right?
We're
not.
Absolutely. We go out in the wild. We're going to get put on a newspaper by the nearest animal that has teeth slightly bigger than ours. We're in the obituary the next day because we're fragile meat sacks with no fur, no protection against the element. Nothing.
Fragile meat sacks.
We just.
Oh no.
We just.
Yeah. No, for sure.
It's nice interesting to know where the line stops or when an animal can no longer interact with each other in that way. So, like, even, as you said, even with humans, when does that line stop? Like, okay, this is the line. It's interesting. Of course, again, never really valuable to find that out from us doing, but it's just interesting to see how these lines can actually be crossed because Wolphins exist, people. Wolphins exist.
Yeah.
Just a question, yeah.
Yeah.
Do Wolphins come in the same color? Or...
Like, do we have like different
colored wolf?
Like, can you order it in purple or something like that?
Like a light gray wolfin, please.
So this is the thing, right, guys? It's only happened like twice that I know of, or that I was able to see through like some cursory research. Again, there's the question of whether or not it's happening out in the ocean. I don't know. But it's only happened a couple times, and so there's like one living example of a Wolphin, and so it's hard to say. Obvious, that's such a small sample size. I can't say what, each one is going to look probably a little bit different. So yeah, it's an interesting question. I don't know what else you would get, and you might get something completely different if or maybe it's not even possible for a male bottlenose dolphin to breed with a female false killer whale.
Oh, yes.
Because this particular example, both of these examples, was a female bottlenose dolphin and a male false killer whale. So, I don't know. Nobody knows,
It's an interesting topic. Okay, I think I've hogged up enough airtime. Over to our producer, Ray. Ray still has a lot of questions possibly on that list, so go for it, Raya, if you're still with us.
Actually, no, we're done on the list.
Yeah. I think because and this is what I was wondering about with this particular topic is okay, we can talk about Wolphins. There's only one of them, but we can talk about it.
Although I'm gonna just go up because there were some questions here. For the people that are asking questions not related to the hybrids and that, obviously we will keep track of them. But maybe if we have some time, yeah, so maybe this for next topic, just people suggesting topics if they wanted to see if in one of the AMAs we could discuss about the manatees in Florida. Is there something happening with the manatees in Florida that I don't know about?
I think they might just be because I was shuffling through things to show on the stream, and I happened to put up some manatees, so I think that got some interest from people.
Because that's the organization we're donating to, Manatees, and it's specifically in Florida. And I'm wondering, is there a reason? I just picked it because it was manatees. I'm like, why not? I mean, seriously, it's.
Yeah, I don't actually know a lot about manatees. I've never had the privilege of working with manatees, but I can do some research and we can definitely talk about them in a future episode.
Okay, so let me see. What's the difference? Okay, now we're getting this one. What is it? I've never heard of that in my life. What is the difference between manatees and dugongs? Dugongs?
Yeah, dugongs. Yeah, I wonder if those guys can interbreed. So a dugong is correct me if I'm wrong. Again, I don't know well, it's not a Pokemon. Gosh darn it. Why did it immediately brought up
everyone?
Am I spelling it wrong? I must be spelling it like the Pokemon, and that's why. Yeah, I spelled it like the Pokemon. That's why I brought it up. They're incredibly similar animals, and and so, but I believe that the dugong is actually much more of an oceanic species. So manatees you're finding a lot in freshwater, and dugongs are out in the ocean. So their tails is one of the big differences that I look for. A manatee tail is such a paddle, it's just like a
giant oar.
Yeah, exactly. And then you look at a dugong tail, and you're getting more of a dolphin style tail. You can also look at the front of their faces. So manatees have a little bit more of a sort of I think this is actually a manatee, even though the caption says dugong here. But dugongs have this kind of, it almost looks like a vacuum on the ocean floor. Yeah, like a little Hoover. Whereas manatees have a little bit more of a rounded sort of face in general that doesn't have this kind of flat edge on the front. So those are some of the main differences. I wonder if they can interbreed. Yeah. This is on this episode of
on Weird
Should we Google that?
Should we Google that? Has it ever happened?
There we go. Solitary animals, but they have very different approaches when it comes to partners. A male manatee can have several female partners. Dugongs and the other thing. Okay, well that doesn't really answer my question now, does it?
Sometimes Google.
And again, you shouldn't just trust everything that you find on the internet. By the way, this is not a lesson in just trusting the internet. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, and it doesn't look like the world is very sure either. So
it's one of the species we don't really need to find that out. They just float. They're so cute.
Yeah, but anyway, they are in the same sort of family. This is called this Sirenia family on the like classification of
Mm.
species, or the Sirenia order, I should say. I guess it is. It's not like a family, but so that's kind of like, so they are in the same classification. I'm not sure if maybe they don't ever even come into contact with each other, which is quite possible. So maybe that's why nobody really knows, but it doesn't really look like there's a lot of answers about that. I would guess they probably can.
Because that's the
Which
nice
is really
thing about
interesting.
this sort of subject with Wolphins is that it opens up a whole new range of questions you can ask when associating animals. Like, would it be possible? Like, I mean, I'm sure this also impacts our entire thought process of the evolution of how multiple species came to be. Maybe back in the day.
Well, even like, you want to talk about evolution, like the closest or like, so the family Sirenia, Sirenia, the order Sirenia dissects into the dugongs and the manatees. Okay, this is pretty simple. But the like, I'll just show you this. This is very close on the family tree. They are actually just like one order away from elephants. So those so
Shut
dugongs
the
and manatees,
front door.
their closest land relative is an elephant.
What? And you know what? I immediately believe that. You look at a
Yeah.
you look at a sea elephant, the manatee, and then you look at an elephant. You're like,
Yeah,
What?
it totally makes sense, but it's just like, it's so mind-boggling. It's like, okay, well, those two creatures went in a different direction, didn't they?
Yes.
Like,
I like the beach sand and the sun.
Yeah,
I like the water.
exactly.
We're gonna split up here. Oh my god.
Yeah. Okay. See you later, Bob. Like, that's
Yeah.
this is the end of our association with each other.
Just as coincidence, I just learned just this week that the elephants actually stand on their toes when they walk. It's not a flat foot, actually. They're actually on their toes, and it's just fat. And I was like, what? Now I learned this. Manatees are basically sea elephants, and they didn't even get the name sea elephants. Come on, people.
I know. I imagine that people didn't know. I mean, like the very first time you go and you name an elephant, you're not gonna think like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, you know what that reminds me of? I saw this thing in Florida once.
Yes.
You know,
but
it lives
still,
in the water. Like, no, you know.
I'd love to be the people who discover these relationships and they're like, dude, guess what I just found out? Like, do we change the name? No, because basically dinosaurs is terrible lizards and no one has changed that since. They're related to birds.
No, I know.
People. They're related to birds.
I know.
That shocked me too.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, but yeah, I don't suspect that. Well, I bet that dugongs and manatees probably could interbreed, but dugongs are found like in a very different place. Actually, there's a couple different kinds of manatees, but they're not really in a range where they would possibly interact with each other naturally in any way.
Question just popped in my head. With your best guesstimation, could a southern sea otter possibly mate with a northern sea otter? Are they?
I would guess so. I am not sure if that has happened before, and it might have. It could have even honestly happened out in the ocean, because the southern sea otters are really flourishing and they're moving up and down the coast. And the northern sea otter populations are really making a comeback and spreading out as well. So I imagine if it hasn't happened yet, I imagine that it probably will. And yeah, I would guess that that's probably pretty possible, because they're not even, I don't even think they're classified as completely different species. I think they're almost like a different, just like a, I don't know if it's even a subspecies. It's almost just like kind of a different like archetype or something like that. It's not even. Yeah.
Okay,
so
if I could use, would that be in relation to like race, where we're not different, we're just slightly different, like just certain, like Asians are different to Europeans? Is that could be similar to northern, southern sea otter? Exactly the same, just a little bit difference, obviously. We're basically products of our environments, that are of how we can take in temperature and so on and like this and.
Right. Yeah. No, I don't know. Possibly. I don't know. I can't speak for the genetics of it, but possibly.
To me, it's very fascinating because then you
kissing cousin otters is what we're saying over here.
You're gonna get a middle-sized otter. So we have large, we have small, and we have medium. The northern southern sea otter. Wow. But
Yeah.
I mean, it just opens up that whole fascination of how we actually all connected to each other.
It's just like evolution is so cool, guys,
It
and I'm so
is.
into it. We obviously don't have like too much more time to go into it, but
Absolutely, we're reaching the end of the time, but it is a
yeah,
fascinating
but
subject.
it's so interesting. So interesting.
But it just shows that we
Looked
actually.
it up. Oh,
You looked it
sorry,
up with the
Shuji.
sea otters?
Did
No,
you?
no, no. I looked it up about the Wolphin, and actually, in 2018, there was another sighting of a Wolphin off of Kauai.
Oh, so
Really?
this is happening in the wild now.
Wow. That's cool. That's interesting. And that, it has. So it's funny though, like where you draw the line with the ethics, right? Should we be doing this under human care? Probably not. It's happening out in the ocean though.
Yeah,
That's totally fine. You know.
absolutely.
But I guess the issue is the human interference. But
Yeah, when it's
it's
for
another
show
interesting
or
question.
actually a purpose.
Like why is that happening? Would they have ever really crossed paths if not for, I'm just spitballing here, but like if not for like global warming? Like there's so many interesting questions that can be raised about stuff like that. But yeah, that's interesting. That'll be a good thing to keep an
Yeah.
eye on, see what's up.
Because now that we've noticed it, it's like that syndrome. Once you see something, you're going to notice it everywhere. So now people are going to be like, hold on. We thought that was a bottlenose dolphin the first time, but it's not.
Yeah.
So maybe it's happening. But to me, the whole Wolfin things, I was just about to mention, what really excites me is, as mentioned, is like how every single creature on this planet is in some way connected in more ways than we think. Like we're all connected in a way. We're not just humans, animals, and then something else. We all like have some sort of relationship with each other in a way. And this shows like dolphins just then.
Well, and you know what I was thinking about, and this is like just gonna we're after this we definitely can't talk about this anymore, but this is like completely off the rails. But I was just talking to my husband the other day about like how whales are so weird. Whales and dolphins and seals and those animals are so weird because like the way that mammals evolved was like to come out of the ocean, and creatures in general evolved like to come out of the ocean, and then some of them were like, we're gonna go back, and now they're headed back. Like, is it possible, and they obviously are air breathers, but is it possible that in the future, of course not in our lifetimes, but
Yes.
that they go back to breathing water, go
develop
back
gills.
to being fish? Like, is it possible? Well, I'm sure it's possible, but like just that kind of stuff is so interesting. It blows my mind. Yeah, it's like trying to think about outer space for me too sometimes.
But
It's
that's
like,
same.
I can't.
Same with humans.
I gotta go take a nap now.
Michael Phelps has a body that's apparently specifically designed for swimming. It's a unique feature. What if
Yeah.
we return back to the water?
Yeah, he's a dolphin.
He's a
He's
dolphin.
essentially a dolphin.
He is.
Yeah.
But there, I think we've hit the time span. We've made good time again.
Yeah.
We'd like to thank you for all of those joining. If you still have questions about the Wolphins, please feel free to post it in chat. Maybe we'll cover it some other times, and maybe KP will even cover it on her stream. Are you streaming after this?
Yeah, I'm gonna stream after this, and we'll look at some animal videos. If you have other unrelated questions, come on over. I expected a
Always.
lot more Quatsi questions today, so if you guys want to talk about Quatsi, we can talk about Quatsi
I think we need
over
a
on
whole
my
topic just
over
for
on my
Quatsi.
stream.
Which is
A whole separate Quatsi stream.
whole separate AMA just about Quatsi, because that is an interesting thing. We haven't seen her grow up, and how that's, we have an 8th family member.
Yeah.
She's so cute. But thank you very much to those that have been watching my channel. Yes, we're still going to carry on the party for Jelly and Mara on our side, but please visit KP's stream. I think we'll drop the link there somewhere, and yeah, carry on your questions there, and we will be announcing our new project that will be happening soon, really
Yes.
soon. But as always,
Really soon.
thank you to KP.
But we
for
don't know
joining us.
when,
We
but
don't know
really
when,
soon.
but just soon. Soon is, it's like, I'll see you soon. 5 minutes, 5 hours. We don't know. We don't know.
Yeah.
But thank you, KP,
All
again.
right.
And to Rhea, our producer in the background, who will be most likely posting the sheet for the next topic that we're going to be covering. Please post your questions early, and we'll be doing this again next week at the same time. Thank you so much, everyone.
All right. Thanks, guys.
So, bye-bye.